Alright, so Edmonton's press conference is officially over where they introduced Kris Knoblauch as their new head coach and Paul Coffey as an assistant. Now, right out of the gate, Kris thanks the Cates family and Jeff Jackson for the opportunity, which leads me to believe that, yes, this is not a Ken Holland decision. This is, in fact, a Jeff Jackson decision, and we'll get into why that's a good thing in a little bit. He also does go on to thank the New York Rangers for the opportunity that he had over the last few years out in Hartford. And this is a reminder that this is a guy that's been in the Rangers system for a fair bit of time. He was also an assistant coach out in Philly. He's got a little bit more thick skin on him than I think people are going to give him credit for. I do think he's still the right fit. And also Paul Coffey coming into the fray as an assistant coach, which I'm also okay with, and they did bring up a good point in that he is literally the greatest defenseman in Oilers history. He's won Stanley Cups with 2 different teams. So while yes, he's going to rely heavily on his great wealth of experience and knowledge of the game, skating, performance, all that jazz, he also clearly has learned a fair bit. He's watched this team closely. He's been in hockey his whole life. I do think he's a very valuable asset to bring on as an assistant coach for the time being as well. Plus, he expressed that he had some reservation about being an assistant coach before everything kind of fell into motion, and that shows me that this man does not have an ego. He wants this team to win, and after some consideration and conversing, this is an opportunity where he can instill everything that he knows into an Oilers blue line that, yes, isn't so defensively sound, but he's going to help implement things to allow this team to be better at D. Cool off a little bit. Stop trying to be an octopus and stretch out all of your arms and limbs in places where they shouldn't be. Play your game. Understand your limitations and play with those. He just already feels like he's going to instill a very calming, literal Hall of Fame presence to this Oilers blue line. Now, as for Ken Holland and why I don't think he made this decision, he also answers a question in saying that he consulted with the veterans on this team about what it would look like if they brought in a new coach mid-season, to which Jeff Jackson, who looked at him annoyingly, then said, "We didn't consult with any of our players. Our players' job is to play. That's what they want to do. They don't want to make these decisions. That's what he's here for." So while I do still want Ken Holland to be held accountable and to just not be involved in any capacity, it sounds like his role as GM is literally diminished. It sounds like he's there to file some paperwork, to make some phone calls, since he has relations with every other manager in the league. But this just feels like this is going to be Jeff Jackson now making the calls, and I'm okay with that as well. As for Kris, he mentioned that this team clearly has been underperforming, and that's why he's here. He says he likes to empower his players, let them be free to make their own decisions for the betterment of the game. But he also said a thing that we just haven't seen a whole lot of on the bench this year: accountability. And the biggest way that you can hold people accountable is their ice time. So already he's given me the impression that he's going to uphold a standard on this bench that just hasn't been upheld before. And Ken Holland will blame himself and blame the cap, but you still have it within your own power to skip a few shifts, to skip a period, to bench an entire game, to deliver a message where if a player makes a call or a mistake that's bad enough that it's really negatively impacting the team, get him off the ice, get somebody else who's playing a little bit better, a little bit hotter on there. That's going to create some pressure, sure, but it's also going to send a message that, we can't be letting these mistakes continue to build, and that's a thing that's been happening this season. The inconsistency has been compounding over and over again. Jeff Jackson said they only played maybe 8 or 9 good periods worth of hockey in 13 games. That's not a lot of good hockey in that small sample size. So I like what I'm hearing from Kris. I like his demeanor that he's going to bring in. I like that he says he wants to focus and build out a better defensive structure while not taking away from the players and their offensive capabilities. He also goes on to say that he's going to lean heavily on his current coaching staff, and it makes sense. Find out what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are. Hear what they have to say about the players and what the players' weaknesses are and what their strengths are, before he goes on to evaluate the bench as a whole and will likely make his own decisions on his staff at some point in the season or maybe at the offseason as well. But it sounds like he's going to take this as an opportunity to just hit pause, let everybody breathe for a second, take some pressure off of the players, off of the bench, and just get your heads back into a collective little brain. Get back into a more focused mindset, and that all finally starts today. He brings up the point that the goal is to play the least amount of time in your D zone as possible. That's where you'll mitigate goals and chances against. That's where you'll mitigate taking bad penalties. You want to maintain possession in the offensive zone. So I think with the knowledge and skill set that he's going to be able to bring in, it will benefit all the good areas of this team. And I think with everything that Paul knows and how he's clearly seen how this game has evolved, he's going to support Kris in helping flesh out the weaker sides of this team, which has been their defensive structure. And Kris also alluded to he's more comfortable playing his own defense. He doesn't feel like why that should be an issue over here. Not sure if he'll go to that or not, All I'm saying is that this is a coach who's fully aware of the full 200 feet of ice that's out there, and he wants the Oilers to play their best hockey at all sides of the ice. So now that we finally heard from Kris in his first media avail, I'm curious to know what the rest of you all out there think. Let me know below. Talk to you guys soon.